gentlemen, I'm pleased to be able to visit you this evening with my latest book. The book is called Experiments Lyrical and Dramatic, Travel Word Songs in Egypt, Greece, and Turkey, and Poetic Plays. I won't have time to talk in this short sampling about the plays, which are highly experimental and interesting. Every character recites in his or her own rhythmic meter. It's really fascinating. But I have too much to say about the 3 countries I visited. So let me tell you what I did. In the course of about a decade, I managed to take 3 trips to Egypt, Greece, and Turkey. Each of them was a 2-week journey, and every day I wrote a poem. And so that's 14 days, 6 sevens, 3 14s would be 42, and that's how many poems I wrote. And that I have gathered them here for you. They are in interestingly old-fashioned meters. I am trying something brand new, which is to do diaries that consist of nothing but snapjots. That is to say, word photos, and not with camera. I didn't bother with the camera at all. So that's the most exciting thing about that, and that's what makes them experimental plays, rather poems. I write them in ancient meters, such as were used by the Greeks and Romans, Greco-Roman style rhythms, to talk about ancient cultures. They're antiquarian tours. I wanted to learn, and if not entirely able still to, or yet, to re-envision everything, because some things are pretty much reduced to piles of rubble, at least to use my imagination. And I even bought double view postcards where you can see how it looks now, and how an artist educated in the area who considered that it would have looked back when it was in its glory. So let me just read you a few of the poems, and you get a sample of how what kind of impressions the 3 countries made on me. This is a sample poem called The Art of Living, Necropolis at Sakkara. And Necropolis is just a very fancy cemetery, which is more like an art museum. Heralds bear emblems of all the 3 seasons in opulent tribute. Here is the hymn to their life, thankfully sounded in stone. Donkeys and dogs in a multitude, oxen and monkeys, a mongoose crawling along the stout branch after the eggs in a nest. Supple the strength of the hardy papyrus portraying the drama, hippo with ominous yawn menacing crocodile hides. All too oblivious he of the boatman, harpoons raised and ready. Look at the boys' tug-of-war, girls holding hands swinging round. Playing great lady, attendants adorn her, a maid holds a mirror. Moving the Senate board men, there we've a sport for our Lord. Managing farmers and families, Mereruka is a master. Harvest and humor are his, winning and winnowing wheat. Workers are hauling a statue of Mereruka on a wood sledge, first having polished it well, as in a flashback we see. Others are fishing with basket and net from a reed skiff in marshland. Nimblest of all are the dwarves, crafting their filigreed gold. Famine the gods have inflicted, hyenas, their legs tied, are fattened. Pleasanter far is to see oxen fed, fish cleaned, ripe figs. Still, we may trust the tactician of Senate will subjugate evil. Thus will a sorcerer chant spells, making crocodiles blind, during a dangerous crossing, when cattle may risk being eaten. Such are the arts of our Lord, lent to the wakening land. It's a complete mural of ancient Egyptian life, and all of it is dedicated with grateful praise to the pharaoh. I'll read one more Egyptian poem. This is called To Akhenaten. Akhenaten is a revolutionary man in the history of Egypt, in the history of Egypt's social and artistic and religious thought, because he told people to stop worshiping the sun god and start worshiping the one God. It's actually an episode of monotheism in ancient Egypt, and this was revolutionary, and he ran into lots of trouble for it, and indeed his successors for a while did everything they could to efface the memory of his name from the sacred accounts of Egyptian history, but he made an impression. People are wondering today just how much of an impression he may have been able to make on Moses. Anyway, here we go. Long, smooth neck and arms with hardly a muscle. Narrow shoulders, high placed, small of the back, and large round hips, thighs, buttocks, stomach dipping just over the low-slung kilt line. Such the pulchritude we see in the portraits, made for you that wrought a novel religion. Beauty of a male that's female, equally, androgyne. Sun-disk oneness. He did seem to have something like female breasts, and his entire body outline had a kind of shared bisexual look to it. Akhenaten never had an audacious leader, showed intent on changing the look of power. Bow-like pouting lips and slant of the eyelids from nose line upward, though you wear the double crown and the headdress, crook and flail that never fail to distinguish lordly force, your almond eyes yet dream of a world of a different order. As the arrow rays of Aten extended, give with hands as if to suppliant children bits of bread or ankhs of life, so sweetly assuring them none go hungry. Thus you too appear at times to withdraw from cares of empire, kindly sharing some fun with family. But Aten's squads of avid iconoclasts range the cities, sniffing out his rivals, merciless, manic, gouging out their names, their images, titles, prying under columns, gilding, looking for gods, the forbidden plural. One great goddess gained your approval, Marat, goddess of the way of moderate justice. She, you think, may be no rival? Danger, her scales weigh not one, but two things. Disk will die to dusk, as Aten is blinded. Women, men, and sons will plunge into darkness. Life means death, and good means evil. That is the androgyne's mortal arrow. We're still experiencing this kind of thing, these types of things in political history today. Aten had an extraordinary idea, which was to have to bloom 1,000-fold later on, but he was, so to speak, not quite synchronized with the rest of the country, and he just put forward too much assertiveness, bullying, and force, and he aroused unending amounts of resentment, and that's why they tried to efface his memory. But I have a soft spot for his revolutionary thought, and that's why I shared it with you. I think that'll be it for Egypt. Now we go to Greece. I call this one Eyes, or the Fortunes of Hellenism. Our impressions and thought about ancient Greeks, and they were vastly influential and hugely important to us today. They invented democracy, after all, along with many other things. These ancient Greeks left us relics. And the relics were statues, and the statues were marble, and the marble was white. So much, you've probably seen Greek art in a museum sometime or other, haven't you? White marble. And it gave people a strange sense that here was a uniquely spiritual culture, and yet because the physical perfection of the bodies is so perfect, they seem to have somehow got a kind of art in their heads which would allow the spirit to shine through the body and purify the whole thing. So there was an attempt really to work up a theory adequate to the purity of ancient Greek culture for several modern centuries, including the Renaissance. But then, guess what happened? researchers wouldn't stop researching, and now it has been quite established. And my double view postcards prove it. This is the latest kind of imagining of ancient Greek marbles. They were painted vividly, colorfully, grippingly, garishly painted. So I'm rethinking the history of Greece as it is often heavily influenced by the history of art, and that history as something changeable. The temples of Athena and Zeus blazed bright, their colors gaudy, garishly unrestrained. All gone, the marble men and maidens, quietly mild in their unmarked whiteness. With empty eyes, desireless and purified, transcending time, they've nearly evaded space, their gaze devoid of focus, motive, such as we find in a colored iris. Herr Winkelmann, composing a sculpture prose, felt lulling, swelling ocean in holy limbs, and bodies, waves of welling water, rising, subsiding, maternal, tranquil. Divine and human, anthropomorphic God, each form proclaimed terrestrial paradise. Brave Hegel said no incarnation ever could equal that Greek achievement. Romantic, Christian, both made a sadder art. This was what the philosopher Hegel thought. Nomadic, hapless, banned from Hellenic peace. But Goethe, the author of Faust and Germany's greatest poet, queried that conclusion. Surely the Grecians were monster-minded. He filled Hellenic hell in his Faust. Faust goes to visit hell, with a Halloween parade and called it Classic Walpurgis Night, St. Walpurga's Night, which is like our Halloween, except it's at a different time of year. The three weird, gray, grisly sisters, they're like the three fates in Greek mythology, owned altogether one tooth, one eyeball. The rhapsode Nietzsche plays on the Bacchic flute. In thunder, ululation awakes the land, the smile of Dionysus, the dying god. Marble statues arise, and their eyes are shining. I should have taken more of a deep breath before starting that last line. Interesting, isn't it? Oh, now we have something that really struck me as fun to write about. Views of the Acropolis, I call it. I was sitting in a cafe in Athens, and the Acropolis, the great statue, you could call it Church of the Virgin, because Pallas Athena, to whom it was dedicated by the ancient Greeks, was a virgin goddess. She didn't really see all that. Well, we'll forget about that for a minute. You'll get enough info from the poem. But anyway, inside the cafe, all the people who live there and can eat lunch there every day weren't especially impressed by the marble that I saw up standing in the hill quite near us, and because of the plate glass windows quite clearly visible, and I began to think about modern and ancient. Framed by acacias and crazy quilt house walls, thick covered with creepers, children on basketball courts playing two separate games, barely outshout or outsing the Acropolis rising above them, birds on the branches, or loud children we hear from within. See, there was a school nearby, and I could hear the school kids chanting the verses in unison, keeping identical cadence, tones that we fancy will rise up to the virginal fane. A fane is a temple. Panathenaical pilgrims to Chryselephantine Athena offered the lady their love, awe, apprehension, and hope. 25 centuries passed. The Acropolis, built for the lady, shows to 5 waiters and 2 customers mid-afternoon. Restaurant patrons, a view picture-windowed in full panorama. One has a phone, a valise, desktop computer, and pen. He is conversing in querulous mood with a troublesome client, helped by the helmeted war goddess of practical arts. Now, though we live in a time when the lady herself needs defending, even her lovers, alas, kindly but highly unwise, hoping to keep from collapse the poor Parthenon, added great iron clamps, but neglected to pour coatings of lead, as the old builders of Hellas had done to bar rust, a molybdocoesis. Rust then expanded each clamp, splitting and shattering stone. She who had beaten Poseidon in miracle working put up with one more calamity, plus cannonballs, gunpowder fire, pious fanatic erasure of sculptural carving, Lord Elgin's plundering, soot, acid rain. Nature is worsted by us. Well, now I think I'll turn to Turkey, and we'll take a look at what's special in a couple of the scenes that I saw. This one is called Derinkuyu Underground. Underground cities are all over Cappadocia. That's a part of Turkey that shouldn't be missed. The landscapes with their exposed layers of all kinds of strange rocks and twisted into every kind of shape by the winds and the sand and the sandy winds. All of this is quite surreal, but no less surreal is what people have done. They've built cities underground. The tour guide couldn't explain to me whether this was the Arabs fleeing from the Ottoman Turks and hiding there, or whether it was perhaps the Christians and much earlier, centuries back, trying to hide from the Romans. But whoever it was, they were ingenious, and they didn't stop hiding nor building, because the one we sampled was one of the more modest, and it only had 8 underground stories. They're not full adult length or height, the stories. You have to be bent over a good bit of the time, but that they should be there at all is amazing. And you just listen to some of my amazement. A burial alive in a burrow world of labyrinthine passages, narrow, cramped. The thousands built and lived and died here, cellared away in their sheltered city. Volcanic tufas carvable, they'll create a school and kitchen, baptism pool, a church, a bedroom, dining room, food depot, winery, air vent, and well, a grave place, a room for weapon storage, a stable cave. You're barely breathing, bushed by the time you're done. A dark descent, 8 stories downward, curving inferno for claustrophobics. The Christians may have fled persecution here, or Turks have found a refuge from Arab troops. Perhaps we'll never know, our fancy glad to explore, while the neural fiber will ramify from ganglions in the mind, with interangled wiring to fire a dream. So channel, tunnel, probing, growing, bolder, breathe deeply, and rise enlivened. That took a lot of energy in the reading, and it's also in the walking. And from my last Turkish poem, I'm just going to give you the closest thing to a snapshot. This one, it will have minimum commentary. I'm just going to show you in this pottery museum, one of the best in the nation, 2 people I noticed. A man who wanted to keep up with all the latest clothing trends that were being shown on the internet from Hollywood, and a woman who was so swathed in black hijab that you could see nothing but her eyes. And I don't know if she was his wife or mother. You couldn't see her well enough to tell. Here's my episode for you. Domabahçe Palace. Short-peaked, light brown, tailored the cap he's wearing. Jeans with rolled-up cuffs, an Italian T-shirt, lines of gold and gray on the right side only, muscle-defining. Sculpted sideburns black on a face well-shaven, sun-tanned, double-chinned, for a man of 30, healthy-looking, only a trifle portly, video zoomer, Avidly at work, he will snap the clever 3D painted ceilings, a dome illusion, making chambers dwarfing the kings of Europe look even larger. See the wife or mother he strokes, attentive, mildly guiding, guarding her from the people, swathed and gloved in black, with her eyes well hidden. When she approaches, marble table, porcelain oven, silken drapery with furbelow, flounce, or tassel, tilting back her face by the wimple side cloth framed for protection, freed, though briefly, happily, from the lunar, murky, shadowed world of a limbo creature. Let her merely sample the satisfaction. Plan for the manly. Thank you for this such fun trip. Hope to take another with you.